The hustle and bustle of the shopping street is palpable. Customers rush inside, shopping baskets brimming with trendy clothes that look like they just came off the runway. Zara, a brand once hailed as a revolution in the fashion world. Affordable luxury, a new collection every week. The perfect illusion of high fashion for the masses. But what's really going on behind those shiny storefronts? While we enjoy the latest trends, a completely different story is unfolding elsewhere. One you'd probably rather not hear. In this episode of Behind the Applause, we take you into the shadow side of Zara, a story where glitter and glamour give way to exploitation and ecological disaster, where the fast fashion we love to wear comes at a steep cost, a cost we don't pay, but the people who make the clothes do. Amancio Ortega's early years were soaked in shame and frustration. As he walked the streets of La Coruña, he watched wealthy women stroll by in elegant dresses his mother could never afford. He felt the stares of others, as if they could smell his poverty. Every day reminded him of what he didn't have: money, status, respect. But it went deeper than that. Ortega was determined to prove himself. His father worked as a railway laborer, clad in grimy overalls, day in and day out. Amancio swore he would never end up like his father, hunched over hard labor, barely earning enough to feed his family. His eyes were locked on the luxurious window displays. Fashion was his ticket out. When he started as a delivery boy at a local clothing shop, that same shame rose up again. As he dropped off garments, he heard the wealthy customers sneer behind his back. There goes the boy again, the railway worker's son. They didn't see him as Amancio, just the errand boy. But for Ortega, every delivery was an opportunity to observe, to learn, to dream. Every evening he sat at the dinner table, his hands blackened from work, his head brimming with ideas. He sketched simple designs on crumpled paper, dreaming of a world where he held the reins. But without money and without connections, his dream was just that, a dream. When he met Rosalía Mera, it felt like he had found an ally. She saw the same emptiness in his eyes. They worked through endless nights, their bodies exhausted but their minds razor sharp. While Rosalía sewed, Ortega hit the streets, his hands trembling with nerves. Every sale felt like a personal victory and a battle. He stood among the market stalls, surrounded by people who still saw him as the railway worker's son. But in his mind, he was already much more. In his mind, he was the man who would change fashion. And then, on a rainy afternoon in 1975, the impossible happened. A woman in an expensive coat walked past their stall. She looked at the clothes Ortega held in his hands. She stopped and bought. That one sale would change everything. The first Zara store was small and modest, but the formula struck a chord. Customers lined up for affordable, luxury-looking clothing. Within less than a year, they opened a second store, then a third. The name Zara became a household name in Spain, but Ortega wanted more. He dreamed of a global fashion empire. And in the 1980s, that dream began to take shape. In just a few years, Zara expanded from a humble boutique in La Coruña into a global powerhouse, with over 2,000 stores across 5 continents. The secret behind that dizzying growth? Speed. While traditional fashion brands released seasonal collections, Zara introduced a revolutionary concept: fast fashion. New racks filled with trendy items hit the store every week. Pieces that looked like they had come straight off the runway. In 2008 alone, over 500 new stores opened, from New York to Shanghai. The promises were irresistible. Fashion you could refresh every week. Clothes that looked like designer pieces but came at prices everyone could afford. Zara's appeal was magnetic. Consumers lined up to get their hands on the latest collection, while the brand's marketing leaned into a sense of urgency. In stores today, gone tomorrow. It was a system that worked flawlessly. But while Ortega and Mera grew wealthier and their empire spread like wildfire across the globe, another story was unfolding behind the scenes. A story in which the relentless speed of production came at a steep cost for the people actually making the clothes. In the shadow of their growing fortune, problems began to pile up, not in the luxurious flagship stores of Manhattan or the gleaming malls of Dubai, but in the stifling factories of Bangladesh, Turkey, and Brazil. There, where the real price of fast fashion was paid. There, where workers began to question why their sweat never showed up in Ortega and Mera's profit margins. And there, behind the applause for Zara's success story, a darker reality began to emerge, one that was becoming harder and harder to ignore. Picture a factory floor on the outskirts of Dhaka, Bangladesh. The air is thick with dust and chemicals. Seamstresses sit on rickety wooden stools, their eyes fixed on rows of screeching sewing machines. The walls are filthy, streaked with mold. Ventilation? Barely. The only breeze comes from an old fan spinning at full speed. It was a prison, says Rodrigo, a former worker from Brazil. He keeps his face in the shadows. We worked 16 hours a day, for a few cents an hour. Zara, they look the other way. But the stories don't just come from Brazil. In Istanbul, customers find handwritten notes hidden in the linings of Zara coats. "Help us. We are not being paid," the shaky handwriting reads. A cry for help. A desperate attempt to reach the outside world. In Bangladesh, conditions are even more harrowing. April 24th, 2013. The Rana Plaza building collapses. 8 stories filled with factories, workshops, and hundreds of workers. 1,134 people lose their lives when the building comes crashing down. Over 2,500 are injured. Under the rubble lie piles of clothing. Zara labels peek through the dust. The world watches in horror. Images of rescue workers pulling bodies from the debris spread globally. Protests erupt in Bangladesh and beyond. How could this happen? Zara quickly responds with a statement. They express sorrow over the loss of life and promise to investigate their suppliers. But many workers remain skeptical. "We knew the building was unsafe," says Aisha, a former seamstress. Her voice trembles. "Every day we heard the building creak, but what could we do? If you don't work, you don't eat. It's that simple." For the outside world, it's a wake-up call. Consumers boycott Zara, demand answers. But behind the scenes, production continues. New collections, new deadlines. And the workers? They stay put. In factories where the walls are cracked and the ventilation barely functions. And the managers? They pace the aisles like invisible guards. Complain? You lose your job, says Aisha. They were always watching us, like they were waiting for a mistake. The factories become prisons, the pressure unbearable. And Zara grows. Their stores continue to fill with new collections. Every week, every month, over and over again. And that was just the beginning. According to Aisha, a former garment worker in Bangladesh, the working conditions were inhumane. They forced us to work without breaks. If we complained, they threatened to fire us. We had no choice. This was our only source of income. Another incident took place in Spain, where a factory supplying Zara was suddenly shut down. Hundreds of workers were left without compensation. Zara remained silent. And then there was the child labor scandal in India. In the city of Tirupur, known as the textile capital of India, girls as young as 12 worked at sewing machines that rarely stopped. They worked 16-hour shifts, 6 days a week. We weren't given breaks, says Lakshmi, a former worker. Sometimes we got a bit of rice, sometimes nothing. Lakshmi was 13 when she began working for a Zara subcontractor. My father was sick. We couldn't afford medicine, she says. So I started working. I had to. The 2015 Human Rights Watch report exposed the harrowing conditions. Once again, Zara faced serious allegations: child labor, forced overtime, starvation wages. But Zara denied everything. They pointed to the subcontractors, to the local factories. They said, "We're responsible for our direct suppliers, but we can't control every link in the chain." Meanwhile, the girls kept working. Every stitch, every seam, a piece of their childhood gone forever. We know this. We know about the scandals, the exploitation, the disasters. And yet we still line up outside Zara stores. We grip our shopping baskets tightly. A summer dress for just $5? Who can resist that? But as we swipe our cards for that dress, we close our eyes to the reality. A reality where young hands, maybe as young as your own children's, sit behind sewing machines for hours on end. They work until their fingers bleed so we can show off our latest find. We play dumb. We look the other way. Because it's easier than facing the truth. Because deep down, we know. We are the engine behind this system. We are the reason Zara keeps growing. Our desire to consume, our indifference. But it goes deeper than Zara. This isn't just one company. It's an entire system. Fast fashion is an addiction. A new collection every week. A new trend every week. We want more, cheaper, faster. But who pays the price? Lakshmi in India works 16 hours a day. Rodrigo in Brazil sleeps on the factory's concrete floor. Aisha in Bangladesh hears the building crack as she pushes through another round of overtime. They pay the price with their health, their safety, their futures. And us? We slip into a new dress. We post a photo on Instagram. We soak in the compliments. But behind that perfect look lies a dark truth. The price of our fashion isn't what's printed on the tag. The real cost is paid by those we never see, those we never hear. So what does that say about us? About our society? Are we willing to face the shadow side of our need to consume? Or will we keep looking away while the fashion industry feeds us a never-ending stream of beautiful illusions? Zara started as a story of dreams and ambition, a man's mission to bring luxury fashion to the masses. But behind the glitter and glamour of fast fashion lies another reality. A reality of overcrowded factories, working children, and exploited laborers. A reality we all know, but choose to ignore. So the next time you pick up a cheap shirt with a Zara label, think of the hands that made it. Hands too young to be working, but with no other choice. Think of the faces you'll never see, hidden behind sewing machines and dimly lit factories. Think of the eyes dulled by exhaustion, of the bodies sleeping on concrete floors at night, too tired to even make it home. We wear their work, but we don't know their story. We admire our reflection in that new dress, but we don't see the children who no longer have a childhood. We buy, we wear, we look away, and the cycle keeps spinning. What's the real price of that shirt? Who pays for that cheap summer dress? And why do we keep fueling Zara's cash registers, even though we know the truth? The reality behind Zara is not what we were promised. What started as a fashion revolution has ended in a tragedy, one of exploited workers and an ecological disaster we can no longer ignore. Zara began as a dream, fashion for everyone. But for many, that dream became a nightmare. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep buying? Or will you close your eyes to the truth? Want more revelations like this? Subscribe to Behind the Applause and let your voice be heard in the comments.